the site.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled in these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. Away from the dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. Chapter realizes that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Right now.
There we go. Yeah, music. We got music.
Abruptly, poorly orchestrated, clumsy,
music.
like your first dance in 8th grade when you try to ask that cute girl out, but
God,
she says no.
I'm glad you didn't say so. I was thinking of something else, right?
Yeah, you always are. Welcome
back
to
to
World of the
Unexplained.
Unexplained.
I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Trent Lackey, and there's Chuck over there.
How you doing?
Hey man, the mics are just hot enough tonight. Chuck doesn't even have to like speak directly into it. He can just like kind of turn his head and speak.
That's pretty
This is
awesome.
great. All right, tonight we have with us a very new author as far as to the field of writing about this kind of stuff. His name is Jeff Danelek, or as some might know him, J. Allan Danelek. The book is The Case for Ghosts. And tonight we're going to be taking your calls here in our studio, 800-960-2289. That's 800-960-2289, or locally 336-996-1596. But Jeff's going to talk to us all about ghosts, demonic possession, some strange personal encounters that he's had with what at first he thought was demons, but secondly he's reevaluated. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. So let's go ahead and bring Jeff on. What do you say?
That's
All right, great.
Let's roll.
Let's roll. Jeff, you with us?
I absolutely am.
Great. That wasn't the best intro I've done in a while, but, you know, hey, I try.
Any intro will work.
All right.
That's good.
This is your first book, isn't it?
No, this is actually my third book.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, that's why. That's right, because you got the Civilization one and the, what's the other one?
I have Reconsidering Atlantis, and
That's
then
it.
I have Mystery of Reincarnation.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I was wrong then in my intro. But, yeah, I did see those books actually up on your site. It's been a crazy, crazy day here. This book
Yes,
is it's almost an encyclopedia of ghosts, ghost hunting, all kinds of different things, spirit guides, demonic possession.
It's probably one of the more comprehensive books I've read in a long time
It's full of stuff. Where do you want to start at?
The beginning.
Well, I suppose I could explain why I wrote the book.
Sure.
What exactly I was trying to do with it. There's a lot of books on the shelf with ghost stories. They're just all over the place. But I never could really find one that brought all the elements together in one book that you could kind of look through and say, well, what's really going on with these ghosts? Not, what's happening, but why is it happening?
Yeah.
And so one thing led to another, and I was able to put together this little tome that pretty much anybody who's interested in the paranormal could pick up and get kind of a pretty good oversight of the whole paranormal realm and come away with it knowing hopefully a little bit more than they knew when they opened the book.
It takes a very scientific kind of, I don't know, when I first opened it up and I started reading it, I felt like I was back in college again. It takes that very, it's a scientific step-by-step kind of approach.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And I found that very, I found that very nice on the eyes as far as if you're trying to explain these things to people that have no idea of what's out there and what's going on. I think it really guides you through and it takes you from one logical conclusion to the next. Why that writing style?
Well, I'm not a academician. I'm not a college graduate even, actually. So I write for the lay audience. I write for people that I would want to write for me. So when you say it's scientific, I don't want you to throw your listeners off and think it's hard.
No, it's not a hard read. By
right. It's laid out logically and objectively, but it's kind of written in a style almost like chatty. where it's almost like we're having a conversation about ghosts.
Yeah, it's. But I noticed how you, like I said, the logical conclusions that you come to. How you start out and you talk about, well, there's this side of the coin, there's this side of the coin. Then we're going to wrap it all up at the end of each chapter with a concluding look at things and how they work.
Well, this is a book that's designed to get people to ask questions more than get answers. I want people to think of the paranormal in terms of just another natural part of the world we live in, and ask themselves some questions about it. If this is true, if it's just a natural part of the world, then what's going on? And do a little research. It's really worthwhile.
Now, do you yourself believe in ghosts?
Actually, I do, yes, because I've always believed that the soul is indestructible and that the human personality survives death. Therefore, ghosts fit into that belief system.
Okay. Now,
but it's true that you haven't seen one, or at the time of the book you hadn't.
I've never actually had a visual experience with a ghost. I've been in the presence of what I felt was a personality.
Right.
We'll get back to that later. I do want to ask you though what you thought. I know in the book later you mentioned your grandmother having. I think you said it was your grandmother that had an experience, and the family kind of suppressed that because of their religiosity. What take do you have on that now? I mean, do you think that it's actually something that was created in her mind, or do you think that was something that she actually saw?
Well, one of my theories that I put forth in my book is the idea that ghosts can communicate with us through a number of different venues, including dreams and through waking dreams.
Yeah.
In other words, ghosts can actually show up to us telepathically, and nobody else can see them but us, or the person that's intended to see them. So in my grandmother's case, my belief is that my late father appeared to her telepathically, and she saw it as a real manifestation in her own opinion. But in fact, it was all going on in her head. But it was still genuine spirit communication.
Well, I'm just curious as to what left you at this level. I know you were at one time an evangelical Christian. Mm-hmm. And then you decided later on down the road, after 20 years? Am I right in that 20 years in that? You decided to walk away from that, and you decided to go down another path. And that's one of the reasons I'm asking if you had in the Christian faith, you have the idea of the heaven and the hell, and the idea of what happens to the person's soul when they die. And my question is, leaving that behind, where does that put you in the afterlife in terms of what you believe is going on?
Okay, that's a good question. I wouldn't say I walked away from Christianity. I like to think of it more as graduating from it.
Okay.
Christianity took me to a certain point of understanding, but it wasn't complete. And so I moved beyond that to explore other belief systems, other possibilities, and also explore it from an intuitive level. Rather than being told what to believe, which is what you get with religion, I actually wanted to approach the divine source myself and find out what these things were. I didn't have a problem with ghosts when I was a Christian, and I still don't. I don't think I was as interested in them back then. But the whole concept of heaven and hell was always a problem for me the whole time I was a Christian. It didn't make sense that this life was all there was, and people who were born in the right place at the right time got to go to heaven because they, heard about Christ, and everybody else is out of luck. Just didn't make sense to me. So that's why I began exploring other areas that led me into reincarnation, which made a lot more sense to me logically. And then with my book on reincarnation, after I got done with that, I had these loose ends, which were ghosts. Well, where did ghosts fit into the reincarnation thing? Do you come back? Do you go somewhere and come back, or what? And so that's got me thinking about the whole idea of the paranormal, how that fits into this greater scenario. And so I wouldn't say my Christianity was a hindrance, but it was kind of a starting point that got me so far, and then I went on from there and added these other elements to it to make it a more complete belief system.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book that something along the lines of a universal consciousness, and that personality is, each of our personalities are somewhat tiny fragments of an aspect of that universal consciousness. Could you explain a little more about that?
Okay, well, this delves in a little bit into the Eastern thought, but my basic belief is that the only thing that really exists in the universe is pure consciousness, and everything else is a manifestation of that consciousness. The universe, the stars, the planets, people, houses, trees, everything is brought out of that consciousness. And what the individual soul is this consciousness individualized into little pieces. Think of it as a cell, and each soul is a cell in God's body. And each soul generates personalities as it comes into the flesh through each incarnation. It'll generate a new personality. And the reason it does this is because as pure spirit, it cannot experience anything. It can only conceptualize it. In order to experience reality, it has to come into a physical realm. It has to be limited in some ways in order for it to experience the things that we go through in our life. And that's how the soul continues to grow and experience new things, and it all goes back into the kind of the central core, or the divine consciousness that we call God. So this is kind of like how God experiences existence, is through us and as us.
So there is no devil, then?
I don't believe there is a personal devil. I don't think there's some kind of super evil spirit out there. There are, however, I think, what I call malevolent spirits, and these are entities that work off negative energy. And they exist kind of in a small part of the universe. They're not really very large, very powerful.
Do you think
they're still there.
Do you think that these are some of the extra celestial kind of beings that you describe in your book, or would these be more along the lines of maybe some of the angrier humans that have died in the past, or a combination of both?
Yeah, it's actually both. I think some of them are angry or evil humans because that personality still exists after they die, and it's still kind of stuck in that middle ground between the two worlds. But there are also what I call extracelestials, which are beings that have always existed as consciousness. They've never been in a physical form. And some of these, for whatever reason, seem to work better through negative energy. And these, I think, are the foundation for the mythologies about demons and Satan and things like that.
Now, why is it that some people are they die and they get this chip on their shoulder and they keep it, and other people maybe they're just a jerk in life and then they die and they're okay? Is there any reason for that? Any reason for that dichotomy?
Well, you're talking about human personalities. You've probably known people who were able to forgive real easy, and others who held grudges all their life. So it's really kind of a reflection of what you are inside when you die. If you're the type of person who holds on to anger and resentment and bitterness...
I do, Jeff.
It'll keep you stuck here. It'll keep you grounded. And if you're the type of person who can let go of those things, I think then it's easier to move on.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Now, I guess one more follow-up question. These extracelestials are separate and distinct from this universal consciousness that you're talking about?
Right. They seem to be also manifestations of the soul. In a way, you got to also understand that all of these different manifestations, even though they're a part of God, are still capable of doing negative things.
Okay.
So everything that exists is still a part of this larger consciousness.
So it's kind of
even though some of it may be malevolent.
It's kind of like a deistic kind of view in a sense.
It is, yes. It's very much that way, but it seems logical to me, and it holds together for me at least.
Now, do you believe that this God or this energy source, I don't know what you would like to call it, do you believe that, we'll call him God just for sake of argument, do you think that God has the power or ability to intervene in the lives of humans or in the lives of creation in general, or is this something that just, like the time clock that just allows to run until whenever?
Distant and abstract.
Well, actually, since we are emanations of this divine being, we are in essence divine ourselves, which means that we are co-creating with this source. So God doesn't just kind of intervene, but we intervene. We create situations, we create solutions, we create problems. And in effect, that's God doing it, but it's doing it through us as us. So you see, it's not like God is outside there somewhere kind of watching what we're doing and once in a while stepping in. It's just that all of this is happening and we're all co-creating at the same time, and we create the kind of universe that we want at that point.
That's why we're making all this money here, guys. Maybe that's why we're not. I don't know. Maybe we're not creating enough.
You chose to create it.
Yeah.
800-960-2289. We're with author Jeff Danelek tonight. 800-960-2289 or locally 336-996-1596. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Jeff, on a personal note, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. How long? I noticed that you had a wife and kids. How long have you been married?
I just celebrated my 22nd anniversary.
Okay, your 22nd anniversary. You walked away from Christianity at roughly 20 years ago. This is where I'm going.
No, actually probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, 6 or 7 years ago. Now, Chuck's looking at me saying no. That's my producer. This is where I'm going with this, and I think it's a good question. Does your wife share the same belief system and your kids as you do now? Have they come to this new realization, or are they still practicing Christians?
Well, actually, my wife has followed me in this direction, not because I made her, but because she's been intrigued by some of the things that come out of it. So I really believe that everybody has to kind of find their own path. So I would never tell anybody that, you have to leave the church or whatever. With my own children, they're still very young. They're still trying to work their way through what they believe.
Okay.
And I tell them my opinion and what I think, and then if they find something valuable in that, that's great. And if they don't, then they're free to examine other ideas.
So they're free to decide.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm going to get back on the topic of ghosts now. Trent's pointing at the book.
No, I mean, it's very...
Fine. We got 2 hours. We got plenty to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
I just thought that was... I thought that was a good question because I was wanting to see where everything fit in and how it all works together, especially in families. I mean, you have a lot of families that sometimes get divided by things like this. And, it was just, what made you... When did you sit down and start on this book? What gave you the idea for it? And when did you say, you know what, I've got to write a book about ghosts?
Well, when I was writing my Reincarnation book, I had a little part about different objections to reincarnation, and so one of the objections was, what about ghosts? Don't they deny reincarnation? And I had a little answer in my book, a couple of paragraphs, but afterwards I started thinking, I thought, that really needs to be explored much more fully than that, in 3 or 4 paragraphs in the back of my book. So then I began to really start studying the paranormal. I began reading other people's works. I found a local paranormal group and started talking to them and following them around on ghost hunts, trying to get an idea of what they're doing. And out of that, just kind of naturally evolved this next book. It took me 5, 6, 7 months to put it together and get it over to the publisher, and it just, I think these books sort of write themselves. You get an idea, and it's just like, boom, the pages just kind of come out of it.
Now, are you a full-time writer now?
Well, no, it's hard to make a living as a writer. I'm also a graphic designer.
And I've seen the work you do. It's actually very good. It's on his website, by the way. That's curiousworld.com. Am I right, Jeff?
It's Our Curious World.
Our Curious World. Okay, ourcuriousworld.com.
Right.
And I've actually seen some of the work that you've done there with the graphics art stuff. It looks really, really good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So,
but I actually am trying to transition from graphics into being a full-time writer. That's why I'm working on some fiction also. Hopefully, down the road, I'll be able to expand beyond just nonfiction.
Oh, what kind of fiction are you working on?
I like to work on stuff that has to do, strangely enough, with the afterlife.
Oh, amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. Where did you come up with that one?
Yeah, wouldn't have guessed.
I don't know. It just popped into my head. I had no idea.
You know what they say, right? What you know.
Well, actually, one of the novels I'm writing has to do with what happens to evil people when they die.
Oh,
What process do they go through? So I have this whole scenario where this Nazi death camp commandant is executed, and he wakes up in his own camp as a prisoner in his own camp, all designed to redeem his soul and bring him through this whole process of understanding what he had done, so that he can find salvation by the end of the book. So it's things like that. I like to write books that make people think.
That's good. Okay, let's get into the ghost part of this. You talk about several different kinds of ghosts in your book. You talk about a historical type of ghost. You talk about
familial.
Yeah, familial.
Anonymous.
You talk about Okay, you want to go ahead?
No. I'm just
grab
chiming
this,
in.
man. I've been talking a lot. Go ahead and grab this. Go on.
Okay. Well, first, I would explain that a ghost is always the personality of a human. the extracelestials that I talked about a moment ago, those are not actually ghosts. These are other entities that exist out there. A ghost is the conscious personality of a once living human being. And of the ghosts, there's basically the interactive type and the non-interactive type. The interactive are the ones that you can interact with. They talk to you, you can talk to them, things like that. And in my book, I divide those into three groups. Familials, which are people that you know, like family members that have passed, a spouse, a child who appears to you. A historical is someone you don't know personally, but is known historically. Say the previous owner of the house you're living in. Yeah. Suddenly he shows up. And then the anonymous is a ghost that nobody knows who they are. They don't have any historical record. They're not family. That would be like, say, a soldier showing up at Gettysburg. You don't have any way to identify who it is. And the reason I make those classifications is because your relationship to the apparition is important in determining how accurate or how likely that is to be a genuine paranormal experience.
Well, it's all relative, too. I mean, an anonymous ghost to Trent may be a familial ghost to me.
Right, exactly. So they're to some degree, they're interchangeable. But my point is that if you just lost your spouse and you were grieving seriously, the chances that they would show up and comfort you, I mean, you could say, well, the person's just imagining that because they're so upset.
Yeah.
But if you were staying at a bread and breakfast somewhere and you woke up in the middle of the night and there was this little old lady standing there and you didn't know who she was, and you asked the owner the next day, who was that? And he said, oh, yeah, that's Mary, who used to own this place. Well, now that's much more credible because it's harder to say, well, you just made this up out of your imagination or out of your emotional state. So your relationship to the spirit that you're interacting with is important in determining how accurate that is.
Let me change gears here real quick, Jeff. You talk about how, and this is something we've talked about before. We've had a lot of exorcism guests on before talking about exorcists and exorcisms and things in that nature, a chapter that you devote to in your book to demons and exorcisms and things like that. And you mentioned the fact that a lot of people haven't overlooked, and one that I surely haven't overlooked, and that was the fact that, after the release of the Exorcist movie in 1973, that a lot more people were saying, oh my God, I'm possessed, or oh my God, I need an exorcism. Then you look and, it just started this mass hysteria kind of movement. Mm-hmm. Now, how many of those people that make these claims of seeing dead people, if you will, how many of those do you think are fabricated, or not, maybe not so much as fabricated, but operations of their own imagination, due to the fact that nowadays the media is more open to the paranormal, is more open to ghosts and that kind of thing, and it's more popular?
I don't know if there's any more fabrication going on. Maybe people are more willing to talk about it. But most of the people I've talked to who have had a paranormal experience were not expecting it. They weren't looking for it. They weren't, getting themselves into a state of mind. Now, there are people who do like to get scared, and they do get worked up, and they do have a very good imagination, and every noise becomes a ghost. But for the most part, most people I've talked to are convinced that they've had an experience with something that they don't understand, that's beyond what they were expecting. And that's why I feel that very few of these stories are actually made up or a result of just hysteria, although some of them probably are.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to be back in about 5 minutes, and we're here with Jeff Danelek, author of A Case for Ghosts. Our numbers here are 800-960-2289, locally 336-996-1596. We'll be back in just a second after this.
Every Halloween at midnight, the devil simultaneously appears in two places: the high plains of India and a quiet cemetery in Kansas. It's November 2nd, the Day of the Dead. Two federal marshals report to the small town of Shinbone, Kansas, moments after a tornado warning, to transport a prisoner with no past, no identity. He is known only as Sin Jin Smith. Starring Roddy Piper, Richard Tyson, Jonathan Davis, Kevin Gage, Gary Casper, John Philbin, Billy Duffy, Charles Cyphers, and Eileen Dietz. Check out the movie that critics are calling one of 2007's most anticipated horror films by visiting www.sinjinsmith.com. That's www.sin-jinsmyth.com. St. John Smith is a Snapkick Productions film, written and directed by Ethan Detmeyer. Coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back with Jeff Danelek, 800-960-2289. Where are our callers tonight?
They're out there.
Yeah, well, listen, guys, if you're listening here, call in. And also, if you're listening, vote on the front of my page. We're just talking about this. I'm doing a break. You know, if I had a book, are you going to be interested in it? If not, I'm not going to write it. No, I'm still going to write it. No, I'm going to force it down your throat. No. If, you know, but vote in the poll, man. That gives me an idea of how many people actually want to hear me rant and rave more than I'm doing right now. So we were talking during the break with Jeff about demonic possession, exorcism, and things of that nature, and how the mind may play into some of these phenomena. Jeff, I'm just going to let you take it from there.
Oh, well, thanks. My point is that if we are co-creators with God as God, then we have the ability to create different scenarios and even attract different energies, which means that if a person believes that they are possessed, it is my contention that the body will respond to what the mind believes. So you will start exhibiting the marks of possession, the great strength and the cursing and all these different things that we associate with it. So my point is that what we believe is possession, for the most part, is probably the imagination that has created an environment that attracts negative energy. So if we assume that there are malevolent energies out there, angry ghosts, if you will, and you are in this belief system that you are possessed, then you're going to attract these entities into your life. Now, they're not actually going to take you over, but they are likely to be attracted to what energy you're putting out.
So you're saying these malevolent forces could actually, in a sense, physically possess you, or spiritually possess you?
Well, that's the thing, is that possession is kind of a tricky term. Possession means that you don't have really any control of what you do. Okay. Something is taken over your body. Now, I think you can be maybe obsessed, or you can be influenced by these entities. But in terms of actually not having the ability to do something that you want to do or not do, I don't buy that. They've done some interesting studies on people who have been exorcised, if you will, and they have found that that everybody who's ever been possessed believed in possession, or had believed in it beforehand, and usually came from very strong religious backgrounds. So the assumption here is that what you believe tends to manifest in your life in different ways. For example, I've never heard of a case of an atheist ever having been possessed.
That's true.
It's always been someone who came out of the Catholic Church or whatever church that believes in possession. I've never heard of a lot of possessions coming outside of the secular community.
Well, the one case that we were talking about last week, actually, with Thomas Allen, I think he said the boy's family and the kid he referred to as Ravi, I don't think they were very religious at all, and they came from
Lutheran, maybe?
They were Lutheran, he said, originally, but they never went to church or anything like that. And then after the whole thing was said and done and over with, they all of them miraculously converted to Catholicism.
Well, the first thing you do when you encounter something like this, if you're not a particularly religious person, the first person you call is usually a priest or a pastor or somebody.
Right.
And then that starts to kind of get the ball rolling. You get into that mindset that this is what it is, and you stop looking for other alternatives.
I mean, personally, I think most people, most secular, non-religious people in general, I think would just pick up the phone and call in the psychologist or the psychiatrist. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
My kid's crazy. he's you know what I'm saying, or something to that effect. I mean, I think that would be the way that a lot of people would approach it first, before maybe seeking the church later if these doctors couldn't come to any kind of conclusion.
Well, throughout history, before the modern advent of psychoanalysis and things like that, all mental illness was considered to be a demon. This was just the natural way of thinking what was going on. Any physical ailment was from God, and any emotional ailment was from the devil. And that's just how people looked at the world. So I think that mindset is still out there to some degree. Now, granted, there are people who go through that route where they start with a psychiatrist or something and things get progressively worse. The question is, what if a person was psychotic or was becoming more and more psychotic, and they were not responding to traditional techniques, and then all of a sudden you say, well, this isn't working, let's bring in a priest.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you've put into the mix a supernatural element to what's happening. And all of a sudden, the kid's not psychotic, he's possessed. And then that starts feeding the imagination of the kid. Kids are very, impressionable anyway.
That's true.
And then if you suddenly have a priest in there and he's throwing holy water at you and doing all this stuff, you're going to think, hey, maybe I am possessed.
The classic hero priest from the Exorcist film.
Right.
The Savior.
Yeah.
I mean, no, really. I'm just saying, the Savior, the guy that comes in. He's wearing the superhero uniform in a sense, which is the traditional Catholic, the stole and all the other stuff. I mean, it's
totally possible.
It's very. It may be something that's very heroic in a child's mind. They see the superhero suit, they see him as a superhero.
And it's also possible. I mean,
he's larger than life.
Yeah. The mind itself is a really phenomenal instrument, and if you don't think you can do something, if it's keeping you, showing the signs of possession, Scott, then, then you'll do it. If you really don't, if you really don't think that you can get out of bed, and your mind is totally convinced it, and you've convinced your mind, it's.
Well, like hypochondriacs.
Yeah.
They actually often have real symptoms.
I'll tell you.
Oh yeah.
But they're not sick.
What is that noise?
I don't know.
Chuck, what did you do?
Jeff, are you still there?
I think it's Morse code, yeah.
Maybe it is.
Well, we're a humorous show here, Jeff. We try to spike it with humor here to keep things from getting scary. Now, as far as poltergeist, you have a small area in your book concerning poltergeist and how, and I think it's
it's a very interesting theory too.
Oh yeah, well you rightly mentioned that it generally affects prepubescent teenage girls. And
it seems to be people who are sort of high-strung, a lot of nervous energy, seem to be conduits for it.
Yeah, but I mean, just in in a lot of the cases, I wonder why it affects little girls versus boys. Going through puberty. Why that changes. I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. Maybe you have a theory on it. Maybe you don't.
Well, there's two beliefs about poltergeists out there. One of them is that certain people have a kind of an inherent telekinetic ability, and if they get nervous enough, or if they're in a situation where they're very upset, they put out a telekinetic energy, which creates poltergeist activity, light bulbs blowing up and things like that. And then as soon as they leave, the poltergeist activity stops. And that's the one theory. The other theory is that there are mischievous spirits out there, but they're drawn to certain energies. Okay, so everybody puts off a different frequency, and certain people who are very nervous, high-strung, for example, might put out just the right frequency that attracts these entities, which is why they seem to follow this person around wherever they go, because they're attracted to it, just like bees to honey.
Mm-hmm.
So my own personal beliefs is that there really are malevolent entities, or malicious spirits, if you will, who enjoy doing things like that, knocking stuff over and scaring people. But they can't always manifest themselves very easily unless they have kind of a power conduit that they can use. In this case, certain young people who have a particular frequency of nervous energy they give off.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So that's my theory in a nutshell there.
Okay, I think it's a good theory.
Yeah, it totally is. Theory. I mean, it could really explain a lot about poltergeists, One of the things that was, gosh, this is going to be kind of in-depth, but, all right, a ghost or personality is a manifestation of some sort of human consciousness that survives the lack of a physical body, and yet it manifests itself in a physical world, in a physical form. And for example, in order for an object to be seen, then there have to be some kind of matter. I mean, now this is separated from telekinetic manifestations. For a personality to be seen by everybody, regardless of their psychic ability, there has to be some sort of material component involved there. which that's really, really, really confusing because, I mean, it's got no body, but yet you can see it as if it did.
So what's a ghost made out of? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, well, the best theory I've heard, and one I tend to like, is that they're made out of essentially static electricity or ionic particles of matter.
Mm-hmm.
What you're looking at with a ghost is essentially, think of it as a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it has enough ability to pull enough energy together to create an outer shell or an outer form.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually creates it out of its mind. That's why they're always dressed, and they usually look like the person did. You know, obviously in the spirit realm you wouldn't have any physical appearance, but they actually take on one that is familiar to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're actually doing is pulling enough energy out of the air. That's why you get the cold spots and the electromagnetic spikes on the EM meters.
Right.
Because they're actually pulling this together. And I think that very few entities are actually capable of doing this. I think it takes a lot of practice or absolutely ideal conditions. But when you can finally get enough of this energy together, you can start to reflect light. Because all matter is basically patterns of energy. So it stands to reason that if you can bring enough energy together, you should be able to get something that at least approximates matter without actually being a solid.
Well, that's true. Now, tying this in with reincarnation and personalities reforming themselves over and over again, could the same aspect of a personality manifest itself in two different ways? For example, you know, I'm one kind of person here in 1840, and I'm another kind of person in 1940, and both of those people have died. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's the same aspect? I mean, that gets really complicated, but what do you think?
Well, what I believe is that the soul generates new personalities. It grows and gains information from each experience, and then it creates a template, and that template is what the next personality is generated from. So the person that you are in 1840 and the person you are in 1940 are not the same person, but they're both generated from the same soul.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ghost is not a soul. The ghost is the personality that's been shed between incarnations. The soul moves on because it has nowhere else to go. It goes back into the spiritual realm and it moves back into the physicality. But the resident personality that it created in each time it came into the physical can still exist afterwards as a separate entity. And that's what a ghost is. It's basically a disconnected personality that's been disconnected from its own soul source.
Okay. And I guess another thing that really fascinates me in general, but the aspect of, how did you call it? Like ghost ships and ghost planes and things that never were alive in the first place, and yet people see them. Go into that a little bit, please.
Well, my belief is that just as a ghost can manifest with clothing, of period clothing, whatever they were dressed in, I think that they can also manifest other things beyond that. For example, a pilot might be able to manifest the entire aircraft around him, or the crew of a ship might be able to manifest the entire vessel. It's not really a solid object, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's a creation of the mind of the ghost, in essence. You know, when most people think, the ghost is all in your imagination, well, think about it. If the ghosts had the imagination, what they could create. And I believe that when you cross out of the physical into the spiritual realm, your ability to create things is in some ways enhanced. It's much more immediate. So you can, if you are willing it strong enough, you can actually pull together enough of this energy to create a facsimile of an airplane or a car or whatever it is. The other theory is that you could be looking at something to do with a time loop, where you're looking at a residual energy, something that's been kind of imprinted into the environment that will replay itself like a tape recorder under the perfect conditions.
Oh,
that's true. And I'm sorry, Scott.
No, go ahead.
One more. About the time loop, and I know you really didn't. You brought out the theory and kind of explained it, but I guess one of the things, if that particular possibility exists of a time loop, I'm seeing actually somebody who's not dead in 1756, and they're doing their own thing and they're totally oblivious to everybody now, then why is the reverse not true? That somebody in 1831 saw somebody of, you know what I'm saying, dressed in, somebody who would be walking around the 60s. You see what I'm saying? Like the time loops don't cross back. What do you think about that?
Work both ways?
Yeah, basically.
Well, there seems to be something called sequentiality that we go through as part of being in the physical realm. That's why we have a yesterday, a today, and tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sequence is necessary for us to understand the experiences that we're having. So apparently, in some cases, that may be an element which is keeping us from seeing into the future as much as into the past. Because technically the past has happened, but the future hasn't yet. There's so many different alternative futures that could happen that it's harder to look into any one of those. And the other point I would leave you with is, how do we know that things like flying saucers aren't something from the future? So I mean, I just put that out there to let you think about it.
Yeah, true. I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was just going to get into the whole idea of some of the ghost hunting tools that are available and different things like that.
Okay.
I noticed that you referenced my buddy Josh Warren's book in your bibliography, How to Hunt Ghosts. I've been friends with Josh for a number of years, Trent and I, and done some different little things, some little ghost hunt things with him and stuff like that.
True. Actually, you quote from Joshua Warren in How to Hunt Ghosts.
Yeah, I do. He was actually one of the first books I read when I first started doing my research.
Really? Okay.
That's a good one.
Well, tell us, what do you think? Do you go on ghost hunts yourself now, or is that something you kind of stay away from and just kind of watch from afar?
Well, I've gone on a couple just for research purposes, but I'm not a paranormal investigator. I don't do it full time. But there's a local group here who has a very scientific approach to it, and so I follow them around once in a while just to see what they do and how they do it, interview the people who are working on it. And, it's always interesting. There's not a lot that happens. It's like hours and hours of nothing interspersed with moments of interest, but for the most part, it's fascinating how much technology really goes into it.
It's like fishing. Sit all day and you wait.
A beam or something, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think? What do you think about orbs? I know you mentioned several different ideas of what they could or could not be in your book, but what's your own personal opinion of what they are?
An orb?
Yeah.
99.9% of the orbs you see in the photos that people probably send your website and stuff are probably dust or insects or something like that floating around out there. People tend to turn the lights out when they're at a haunting, and then they have flashes on there. When that flashes, and it's a dusty place, you're likely to get orbs. However, I do think that there are such a thing as legitimate orbs, and I think Josh Warren in his book talks about these more than I do. What I kind of see orbs, vortexes, and full-body manifestations are sort of the three states of manifestation in a ghost. The orb is the earliest stage. It's like a bubble of consciousness where you have an entity that doesn't have enough power, if you will, to do more than just appear as like a dot of light. And then you have a vortex, which is a slightly larger version, maybe something that's starting to work its way towards a fuller manifestation. And then finally, the full body apparition that are famous, you really want to get a picture of. So I kind of see them as one step in the evolution in manifestation.
Okay. Now I've seen some stuff. Actually one of them I am referring to was one that Josh had caught on tape, and you actually see this on video, and this thing flits around in all kinds of different directions, and it's obvious that it's not a piece of lint or a piece of dust. This thing moves on its own accord, very erratically all through the frame, and then goes out, shoots outside the frame. What do you think things like that are?
Well, like I said, there probably is such a thing as genuine orbs. So if it's something that has no natural explanation, such as an insect or something like that, then you have to next go to the next level and say, well, could it be paranormal energy? Could it be something moving through the shot like that?
That's what I'm getting to, Jeff. I want to hold you down on something here. And my question is, I know there's the one camp, like you describe in your book, there's the one camp that says, there's definitely something legitimate here in the real sense, but we're not sure what it is. It may be paranormal, it may not. We just think it's something that's unexplained, and we don't know what it is yet. And then there's the other group that says, okay, well, it's nothing at all. Where do you fit in, or what group do you fit in there?
Probably the first group.
Okay.
I do believe that you need to explore every other option first, so the natural option, before you immediately embrace paranormal option.
Uh-huh.
The problem is most people who are kind of hobbyists with this, everything is an orb. You know, the first thing they see, oh, it's a ghost. You know, I got a picture of one. And that's actually detrimental to the whole science of parapsychology, because if everything's an orb, then really nothing is.
And they all go to cemeteries to catch them. I mean, what do you think, the dead hang out at cemeteries? I mean, I wouldn't. I mean,
that's like the most obvious place, you know?
Yeah, come on. Let's haunt the cemetery, guys. Let's scare some kids tonight, huh? Let's get our picture taken.
Let's haunt the hallway over there that no one's expecting us to be in.
I mean, if I were a ghost, I would haunt the girls' locker room.
Oh my God.
Strip clubs, crack
exactly,
houses,
strip clubs, crack houses. That's right. I mean, those kind of places.
Kind of a self-induced torture, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah.
There's always possession, Jeff.
All right, Scott. That's kind of going in a weird direction.
All right.
A very weird direction.
Like I said, we have fun here.
Yeah.
800-960-2289. 800-960-2289. Am I going to have to reach out and touch someone here? Am I going to have to call my listeners for me? Come on, guys. Where are you at? I see you in the chat room. Pick up the phone and call. Jeff will not hurt you, I promise. He's a nice guy. 336-996-1596 is the local line. And anyway.
Oh, the chat room.
Yeah.
Don't forget getting.
Yeah, you can post stuff in the chat room and we'll ask it if you want us to. And you know, if you're shy about calling in, because we are up and running that tonight, and you know, fortunately we don't have the technical difficulties we had a couple weeks ago. We've got all that straightened out now, thanks to old Chuck here. But anyway, so of all the different things that you write about in your book, what do you think, seeing, you know, being firsthand there in a lot of these ghost hunts, what do you think that if someone's interested in becoming a ghost investigator or a ghost hunter, whatever you want to call them, what do you think is probably one of the better tools for them to have in their arsenal, just like to start out with?
Well, beyond objectivity, the best tool is really just a really good camera. And not necessarily a digital either. Because you want something that can create a negative. Negatives are a lot harder to fake. You can make better blow-ups and close-ups of them if you do catch something. But really, if you get a good camera, a high-quality tape recorder for EVPs, and probably an EM meter, and maybe a thermometer reader, one of those handheld thermometers you can point and it'll give you readings. Because if you can get a high EM reading or a cold spot, then you know where to point your camera, basically.
Now, why I want to mention this real quick before we go to our next break, but there is a section we talked about off the air that in your book that actually shows how someone would be able to use Photoshop to basically fake a good ghost photograph. And, you know, looking at, you know, your before and after, you give a step-by-step, but looking at the final picture you come up with, it's impressive stuff, man. It looks like the real deal.
Yeah, I didn't know how much I looked like a ghost until I turned myself into one.
But yeah, it's amazing. And you told me that you were holding some kind of courses on that.
Right. I'm going to be teaching a seminar at Colorado Free University that's going to look at how you can fake these things, as well as look at some real ghost photos, some good ones, and some other photo anomalies that people often mistake for ghosts.
Okay, when is this being held for people that may be listening in your area?
Well, I got one on Friday the 13th. That's in October, and then another one on the day before Halloween, on the 30th. So any Denverites out there, go to the Colorado Free University website and check it out.
Now, how much is this course?
I think that these are like $35 a piece.
Okay, so it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
A couple hours in the night. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, to ask a bunch of questions and find out what ghosts are and look at some pictures. And
especially around Halloween.
Oh, absolutely. It's perfect.
You know, Friday, October 13th, you know, that's the one. This is what really irks me about the media in general, because every Friday the 13th, they're like, ooh, it's Friday the 13th. Traditionally now.
It's Friday.
It's Friday, October 13th. Yeah. And that's, you know, that only comes around every few years, so it's you're getting on the real evil night there, man.
Well, we wanted to have some kind of dates that were going to catch people's attention, so
that did it.
Better than Friday the 13th, and they wouldn't do one on Halloween evening because they figured nobody would show up because they're all out doing stuff.
Oh yeah.
So the day before.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing, though. Perfect timing.
Yeah, it's true.
But we're going to go ahead and take a break here. The number again for you guys, you better call in. I'm gonna go off in the chat room here. 800-960-2289, 336-996-1596. Call us up. Speak with Jeff Danelek, author of A Case for Ghost. We'll be right back after this. And for those of you not watching Monday Night Football, we're back. 800-960-2289 or locally 336-996-1596. Where are my callers tonight?
You know what you just did, though, is you just reminded all of them that
Monday Night Football's
on.
I need
Turn
to cut
us
the
off.
TV.
Yeah.
Smooth, Scott. Real smooth.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, it's my fault. Okay,
yeah.
We're here with Jeff Danelek, author of A Case for Ghosts. And Jeff, your website again is ourcuriousworld.com. Is that correct?
Right. That's O-U-R, not the letter R, though.
Yeah. Well, we would think that our listeners would be intelligent enough to pick that up, but yes.
Well, it took me a couple of tries before I figured it out myself. So.
Okay. ourcuriousworld.com. O-U-R. And if you guys, if you don't know how to spell curious, you're just in the wrong boat.
Scott. Yeah. Wow. He's in a rare
I'm
mood.
insulting them to get them to call in.
I know. Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, we like to have a good
time. You might get it.
We have a good time here.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. And tell us about the case. This is something. Oh, ow, that hurt. Tell us about the case that you were talking. Well, actually, I've got two topics. First of all, I don't know. What do you want to talk about first? And you tell me. I want you to either talk about your friend, the older man, Jack Maxwell, or I want you to talk about spirit guides, because I've got some questions about both of those. Which would you like to talk about first?
Well, since we were already talking about possession and the power of the mind, let's talk about my friend Jack.
A great segue.
Yeah, Jack was a kind of my mentor when I first became a Christian back 25 years ago. He was a retired Navy chief petty officer. And so I used to hang out at his house, and he was a very strong Christian. I mean, like, super zealous, which is unusual, for a Navy chief petty officer.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked him, why are you this, zealous about this? And he says, because he was attacked by demons one time, and he has to stay this way. And then he told me this whole story, which I recount in the book, of where he got into this adulterous affair with this woman who turned out to be a witch. And I don't mean, the nice Wiccan pagan type person, but I mean like a black witch, if you will, a dark witch.
An evil witch.
An evil witch. When he broke up with her, she supposedly called her coven sisters, and they sent a bunch of demons after him. And he tells me this story about where they came into his house, and he spent the whole night battling them and all these different things. And I thought, well, that's an interesting story.
So, yeah, you mentioned in the book where he says he had to keep, quote, prayed up.
Yeah, he had to keep prayed up after that, or else they would come back and get him again. And so he lived in this world where demons were just outside the door all the time. And as, at the time I believed, of course, and then over the years I started thinking about it, and I thought, I wonder if this isn't the perfect example we were talking about with possession, where you kind of attract these entities. And imagine if he really believed that this woman had sent demons, and he's already in that mindset, that they would have picked up on that, and he could actually have manifested themselves in his house through his own, the power of his own mind, in effect.
I was just going to warn the listeners not to date evil witches at this point.
That was the moral
especially
story.
having an affair with evil witches.
Yeah, even worse. What does his wife think of all this, man?
His wife, well, she was involved in it too. I mean, it was all, the whole family was kind of involved in this attack, if you will.
Well, we got a caller. Let's bring him on. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Chris calling from Atlanta.
Chris, how you doing?
Doing all right. Just fixing some dinner, listening to your show.
All right.
Cool.
Somebody in Atlanta's listening. What do you got for us tonight?
Okay. Well, those of you who've heard me before, and I'm sure you two remember, my questions about ghosts generally focus on one specific thing. The happy, cheerful, friendly ghosts. Why do we never hear about them?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that very few ghosts are happy, because the whole reason they're ghosts is because they've gotten themselves trapped because of some issues in their life. So they're probably not happy people to begin with. So they're not going to be happy ghosts. The only ghosts I've heard of that would be considered happy are what I call the goodbye ghosts. These are ghosts of people that you know who have passed, and they want to come back and comfort you or say goodbye or something like that.
Right.
Now, I'll give you an example. My father passed away about 10 years ago, and for about a month after that, he came back, and he would turn on all the touch lamps in my mom's house. You know, these touch lamps, you have to hit them 2 or 3 times to get them to turn on.
Right.
And she would leave the house, and she'd come back, and he'd have all the lights on. And he kept doing that for several weeks until she finally asked him to stop. And then he stopped, and they didn't come on anymore after that. And that's an example of how a comfort ghost says, look, I'm fine, everything's okay. He finds some kind of amusing thing to do that's not going to hurt anything. And then he says, okay, now you got the message, I'm okay, and he moved on. And so those are the kind of positive experience people have with ghosts. But almost everybody who ever encounters a ghost usually encounters a historical or something like that that's stuck on this plane of existence because they refuse to move on, or there's something holding them back, or they're just, not very nice people to begin with.
Chris, are you washing dishes?
No, I'm cooking.
Oh, okay. I hear pots and pans rattling back there.
Yeah, that's cooking. I would have called in sooner, but I was up to my elbows in beef, so...
okay. What are you fixing?
Huh?
What are you fixing?
I am preparing to have my stove become possessed because I'm fixing some of my famous chili right now.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any other questions for Jeff, Chris?
Did I answer your question, first of all?
Yes, you did. For the most part, yeah, I can understand that, that without some kind of an anchor or some strong emotional force, most people who die content are happy to move along, right?
Pretty much. Now, there is this a type of ghost I call a kind of a curious ghost, or maybe a mischievous ghost. So these are not necessarily mean ghosts. There might just be ghosts that are interested in seeing what they can do from the spiritual realm. And they might be fairly benevolent. They might be even funny. A mischievous ghost is actually, I think, behind a lot of the poltergeist activity. And they can actually be even a little amusing. But for the most part, most ghosts you're going to meet are going to be melancholy, or maybe upset, or a little confused. So for the most part, most of them are not going to be real happy ghosts.
All right, because, just to me, the one ghost that usually comes to mind whenever I think about a benevolent spirit is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but North Carolina has the legend of the Gray Man. Are you familiar with that? No, I haven't heard
this one. I'm not familiar with this, actually.
Well, basically, it's a ghost from colonial times of a gentleman dressed all in gray, who generally appears during hurricane season. He is usually wound up being seen by one person or a couple who live in the same house when a hurricane is approaching. And that couple, almost always, whenever they evacuate and come back, they find that their house has not been affected one bit by the storm. And this has been a documented ghost sighting since, I believe, the 1600s. So he has been around for a while. I think the last time he was seen was back in the 1980s. Old couple walking on the beach, see a guy, they smile, wave, and he disappears right in front of them. Hurricane comes 3 days later, they evacuate and come back. All the towels they had left on the banister outside haven't even moved. Perfectly dry.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was just, curious, why don't we have more ghosts like that? The tutor ghost who comes along and helps Johnny with his math. Or
well, some people stay behind because they have a connection to where they lived. So let's say you're really connected to your home and you want to stay there after you die. Well, if you're a positive person, you're a fun person, then that ghost might be fairly fun.
Okay.
He wouldn't necessarily be a nasty ghost. Maybe he should be moving on and doing better things with himself, but that's no reason he couldn't be a pleasant personality.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So there's different ghosts that there are people, basically.
Okay.
I've never heard that one about the Gray Man.
I neither. That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thanks.
It's a very interesting story. Worth reading about. It's got a lot of history to it.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for calling in, man. We appreciate it.
you.
Someone's alive out there listening. All right, very cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy your chili.
Yeah, enjoy the chili.
Bye.
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 All right. 800-960-2289 or locally 336-996-1596. Give us a call if you forget the numbers there on our front page, worldoftheunexplained.com. So anyway, going back to your story, we were kind of in the middle of the story. You were talking about he's being demonically
harassed by demons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, I finished my story.
Yeah.
But the point of it was that it sounds to me exactly like what I said earlier, that he was attracting these entities or actually creating them out of his own mind. Are you familiar with the phenomenon of the stigmata?
Yes.
Well, this has been documented where people who are religiously fervent can actually make the signs of the crucifixion, of course, appear on their hands and feet and sometimes on their forehead, too. And they've studied this, and they find that they're actually able to make the blood vessels under the skin burst, is what they're doing. And they're doing this through this sort of religious fervor. It makes sense. If you can do that with your own physical body, why couldn't you also affect your surroundings telekinetically with that same fervor? So the key to this seems to be your level of zeal, or how deeply you believe in what's happening to you. I mean, if you are absolutely convinced that there's a devil chasing you, then I think that you can manufacture all the physical elements of that entity in your life.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. I want to move to spirit guides now, if I may.
Okay.
Actually, probably a better segue would be, I've got a better segue. Then we'll move to spirit guides. The situation that you had, the personal experience that you had with when you were in your early 20s with that demonic force that you talk about in your book, or well, maybe not a demonic force, but the evil, the feeling of evil upon you. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Right. When I was living in my apartment in San Diego as a sailor, and one night I just noticed this sort of heavy atmosphere in it, and it got increasingly more heavier and heavier, denser and denser, and I just suddenly had this tremendous fear. I felt like I was in the presence of something that was very angry or very malevolent, that was intending me harm. I didn't see anything or hear anything or anything like that, but it was just this sense. And I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, where you just were absolutely certain something was there with you, even though you couldn't see it. And that's how it felt. And so I began to address it. I started to, essentially casting it out, if you will. I was a Christian at this time, so I was using kind of Christian techniques to cast this thing out. And as I did this, it started to fade. And then the next night it came back again, but it wasn't quite as strong. And then I went through the whole routine again, and it faded again, and it never came back again. Now, if this was my imagination, the question that I have is, why had I never imagined something like that before or since? Why just that one time? And it told me that I believe that these energies will come to check you out sometime. If you're in the right state of mind, then they'll want to see what you're doing. And so they can be addressed and talked to and convinced to leave if they recognize that they're not going to accomplish what it is they're trying to accomplish, which is to scare you.
Well, now you prayed, according to your book, you prayed and you over and over again, and finally this thing left you.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that was just something that was induced by your own mind, maybe, as far as getting it away or getting it out?
It could have been to some degree, but I also think that when you can kind of build up your courage in the face of a negative energy like that, I think that energy tends to dissipate. So what I was doing was trying to, I was using the name of Jesus over and over again, because it gave me kind of an inner strength and a sense of peace. And when I was able to build that up in me, it seemed like it lost the same amount, the equivalent amount of energy. So as I was becoming more positive, it was becoming less capable of manifesting itself. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sure. Definitely. All right, guys, you can call us here, 800-960-2289, 800-960-2289. Where are you at, Omaha, Nebraska? Where are you at, Wellington, Texas? Where are you at, Australia?
Australia.
Yeah, I would say where are you at, Nevada, but I can't because we're pre-recorded there. But anyway, they should be listening live, too, anyway. But, yeah. Give us a call here, 800-960-2289, 336-996-1596 locally. And, yeah, call in. Call in, Omaha. We know you're out there. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah, spirit guides. This is what I want to talk about, the spirit guide situation. I hear this. I think it's a bunch of crap, personally. It's just my own interpretation of it. But hey, whatever. You know, everybody's spirit guide. Whatever. I don't
know, Scott. I mean, it seems
feasible to you to have a spirit guide.
Well, possibly, but I mean, I also lean towards the idea that the spirit guide is not really. It may put on a happy face and lead you somewhere, but in the end,
I was actually going.
It might be trying to
lead you in the wrong place.
Manipulate you.
But I was actually going into where you were. We had talked about before. Is actually you had brought up the question, and it was a good question, and it was the fact that all these people that talk about their spirit guides, for some reason they're always like they're cool spirit guides. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh yeah, I've got this slave named Obo, walking me around here that's poor and desolate. No, I've got this 15th century
English aristocrat
named
Arthur Wellington III with a saber and badges and epaulets.
Or this old king or this you know what I'm talking about. It's always somebody famous. It's like your reincarnation people.
Well,
a lot of times, I was king so and so in a past life. I was Elvis. I wasn't a poor slave that I was a poor slave that
I was a peasant who died in the first wave at the Battle of Hastings and didn't really do much.
Exactly. I mean, what's your take on that, Jeff? I know it's a lot to have a take on.
I kind of lost the thread of your question in the middle there, but I'm going to do my best. When you're talking about spirit guides, most people, I think, who believe their spirit guide is a particular person are probably really dealing with an actual ghost. All right? Because the spirit guides that I've encountered personally have not really had their own unique personality. They tend to be more of a conduit between us and what I call the divine consciousness, God. And what the spirit guide's purpose is not to, fix things in your life or tell you things. It's to kind of help you find the answers yourself. So if you think of a spirit guide as a conduit between you and God, and that's what their real purpose are. These are extraterrestrials who do this full time. They find people who are in a state of spiritual evolution who are ready to kind of move on to the next level, and they help them move on up there.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
So do you
it kind of ties into Eastern religion, the Bodhisattvas, the enlightened ones who reject enlightenment so that they can stay around here and help other people achieve enlightenment.
Anyway,
those dudes. Sorry.
Where do you get some of this stuff?
You saw Point Break one too many times.
Whoa. It's my best Keanu Reeves impersonation. I just can't do it better than that. Oh, man.
Okay.
800-960-2289. 800-960-2289 or 336-996-1596. Give us a call here, guys, and let us know what you think about spirit guides. Someone in chat just said that their spirit guide was Vin Diesel. I don't see another famous, but not even dead yet. I mean,
he's not even dead. I don't know how he could be a spirit guide.
How can he be a spirit guide?
It's the 18th century Vin Diesel.
Oh, maybe.
Okay, 18th century.
The Dutch sailor explorer. I'm just making that up.
I don't even know. No, I'm not even going to go there. That would be bad. You know where I was going with the Vin Diesel?
No.
Yeah,
You just kind of just stop.
Let's talk about sued.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Huge segue.
Yeah, that was my spirit. That's pretty much all I have on Spirit Guides, Trent. You want to pick it up from there?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Where?
Who's the one who said they didn't believe in spirit guides?
I don't believe in spirit guides.
Scott. Yeah, Scott.
Okay, well,
you don't want to get me on my belief system.
Well, I mean, it's nothing really remarkable when you think about the whole process. I mean, if you believe in ghosts, the idea that there are other spiritual entities out there that are willing to help us shouldn't be that big of a step.
Yeah, well, I don't believe in ghosts either, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to go in there. You know where I'm going with that. You know what line I'm going down. And, we're not going to go there.
No, let's not.
But I believe that there are logical explanations for a lot of these things.
Oh, yeah, I agree. There's for a lot of them. But these, like the UFOs, there's always that 5% that you can't explain.
Yeah.
Well, now, what do you, as far as some of these, I noticed you use the word vortex in your book instead of ectoplasm. Is that like is there a reason for that? Is it something is that more scientific terminology for it, or is it just a...
Well, ectoplasm is kind of an archaic term that's fallen out of favor. Back in the early part of the 20th century, there used to be these sort of fly-by-night mediums who would do these ectoplasmic things with these rags coming out of their nose and all this stuff coming out of them.
Oh, yeah.
And that was pretty well debunked by the science community. They came out and showed how they were using props and things to do this. And the whole concept of ectoplasm became kind of a no-no. If you wanted to sound scientific, you didn't use the term ectoplasm.
There's an interesting book that's out there. I don't know if you've read it. It's, God, what is her name? I think it's called Ghost or something like that. And she goes into this whole big thing about how she went to the library and looked in the old files and, saw all the, just goes through the whole history of the ectoplasm and goes to India and talks to some people. I think it's called Ghost. Is that right, guys? You know what I'm talking about? Pamela or something, so. Maybe?
Oh, gosh.
Never mind. I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave that alone. Then I thought I had something going on there, but I can't remember. Now, you talk about animal spirits in your book, and you talk about a possibility of animal spirits being able to come back. What tell us about that.
Animal spirits? Well, there's been cases of people who reported seeing a pet that had died. So the question is, does an animal possess enough sentient personality to manifest as a ghost, to come back after it dies? And my question is that I asked in the book or my point is that could it be possible that the owner of a pet, because of the bond of love they have with that pet, isn't actually allowing that personality of that animal to remain for a short time after it dies, and that it's actually the connection to the owner of the animal that is creating the manifestation? Again, going back to the earlier idea about the power of the mind to do these things. So I don't believe that animals necessarily come back as ghosts. Otherwise, we should see ghosts of frogs and snakes, things like that, But the only time you ever see an animal ghost, it's usually a dog, a cat, a horse, something that was a close pet.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads me to believe there's some linkage between the owner and the pet.
Sort of like how maybe the pet borrows some of the psychic energy from the owner, and the connection brings its level up by association.
Right. In my belief system, when a dog, let's say your dog dies, it has a personality, but that personality fades after a while because it doesn't have enough sentience to maintain it beyond a short time after it dies.
We've got a caller, Jeff. So all dogs don't go to heaven. Here's our next caller here. Go ahead, bring him on. You're on World of the Unexplained. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Laura, and I'm calling from Kansas.
It's Laura. Hey, Laura. I was just talking to you in the chat room.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Laura.
I'm sorry you had to be exposed to these guys.
Oh, my gosh.
It set my career back a few years.
Wow. Oh,
I'm
man.
just kidding.
Now, you've got a different perception on these spirit guides and that whole idea, don't you, Laura?
I really do. To me, it's like, you can look at this in two different ways. You can say, well, we just create all this stuff in our heads. We're all crazy. And there would be a lot of crazy people running around.
Oh, yes, certainly.
There's no answer to that because you're thinking,
Dead
yes,
silence.
they are crazy.
Yeah, because we are.
I'm sorry I missed that one.
My point was not that we're making these things up. The point is that the imagination is a gift that we were given by God specifically to get in touch with Him. So we can use our imagination to create these things, but they're actually providing a genuine function, which is kind of tuning into the higher intelligence out there, the higher consciousness.
Guys, we've got like 20 seconds here.
Oh my gosh.
Laura, can you stay with us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Thank you.
Hang tight, guys. We'll be right back on World of the Unexplained after this. And we're back with more Chewbacca impressions. No, I'm kidding. 800-960-2289.
We got Laura.
And Laura, I'm sorry,
Jeff.
were you finished with your question? You got another question or another comment, or where are we at here?
Well, yeah, I just want to know what Jeff thinks of that. Well, you said what are the differences between ghosts and spirit guides? Well, I've never heard of a spirit guide actually showing themselves. Do we have any kind of information on that? I mean, ghosts are generally something that, you can capture on film or, it's been attributed to orbs and all kinds of things. But I've never heard of anyone ever capturing a spirit guide, except for maybe back in the spiritualism days when they did a lot of hokey stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's what makes me believe that a spirit guide is not a ghost. It's not the same kind of thing. It's an entity that exists in another realm. It's not trapped kind of in the earth plane. It can move between the two realms pretty easily, and it's designed specifically to be non-intrusive.
Right.
So it's not going to want to be captured on film. It's not going to do what needs to be done to reflect light and things like it. Could probably do these things if it wanted to, but it is wise enough that it knows not to.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, and I know that angels, don't very well often reveal themselves either, except for when they come in human form. But
I tend to think of angels and spirit guides as kind of the same thing, just different terminologies for the same sort of being.
Okay, that's cool. Sounds like a good answer.
Well, thanks, Laura.
Yeah, you guys take care. Don't do any more Chewbacca.
Aw, it was so good.
I might, Laura. You just never know.
All right, bye.
Thanks,
Laura.
All right.
Like I said, Jeff, sorry I put you through that.
Yeah, we did a Chewbacca impersonation for Jeff on the air. Off the air. Yeah. From what we did on the air a couple weeks ago, if you guys heard it. And,
Let's get back to the ghost guy.
Well, hey, I did hang up. That's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
That's true,
otherwise, we would have had to talk about Chewbacca the rest of the time,
The ghost of Chewbacca,
So that's great.
Anyway.
Oh, man. Okay, we were talking about all dogs not going to... I'm sorry, I love that tagline. I had to throw it in there right before the call.
Yeah, spirit ghost.
But no, it does make a lot of sense. Yeah, you're right. You don't see, frog ghost, snake ghost.
Not really.
But I don't know.
In the shamanistic traditions, you have ghosts like spirit of the dog. You know what I'm saying? In more animistic traditions, you do, but that's another thing entirely.
I would argue that the frogs and the snakes and all that, they're not up to that same level as come on. Yeah, people got pet snakes and stuff like that, and if you've got one, I'm sorry, it's just weird. But it's I hope you don't have one, do you, Jeff?
No, I don't.
Okay, great.
I barely can handle dogs.
But most people have dogs because dogs and cats, they're kind of like people,
Mammals, closer biological connection.
Yeah, higher consciousness.
Anthropomorphized.
Yeah. I give it a higher consciousness level, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like we said, it's the attachment of the human to the animal that brings it.
I don't know, but then you could argue back and say that, you could say that, well, then why aren't there all these dog ghosts from, 15,000 centuries ago running around? Well, the same thing applies to humans. Then why aren't we just so overwhelmed with all these human ghosts popping in and out here and there?
That's a good question.
So, you can argue both sides on that.
And then there's the other thing too about it just came to my head, the historical ghosts. A lot of times they are of the Revolutionary War, or maybe back to the Elizabethan times, but you rarely hear about a ghost that's 1,000 years old, like the ghost of Alexander the Great or anything like that. What do you think about that?
Ghosts do seem to have a duration. They have a period of time they seem to be able to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory is that they will eventually move on of their own accord, or there are other spiritual entities on the other side that are trying to entice them to move on. Because being a ghost is an unnatural state of existence. Your natural state is to move right onto the spiritual realm when you die.
Mm-hmm.
So what these entities are trying to do is to pull these spirits along. And that's why you rarely see a ghost that's more than, say, 300 or 400 years old, and that's unusually old.
Yeah. That's just a point that needs to be brought up. What about waking? I guess it's more like a psychic phenomenon than an actual ghost manifestation. But when people see living people from far off, I don't. Maybe more. It's more like a form of astral projection, perhaps. What do you think, Jeff?
Are you talking about a living ghost?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who haven't read the book, living ghost is the manifestation of someone who is not passed, who's still alive, but is in some other locale, maybe on the other side of the planet. And the idea here is that, yes, you're right, this is a type of OBE, or astral projection, that is apparently created inadvertently during times of great stress or danger. For example, a pilot is stuck in a storm, and maybe he suddenly appears to his wife and says, I'm going to be okay, and then he is okay. And she says, hey, I saw you when you were still in the storm. And those are rare. There's only been a handful of recorded instances of those. But that does demonstrate that even when we're still alive, we are still a spiritual being. We still have a spirit element to us. And we don't necessarily have to be dead in order to move into the spiritual realm. We can do that through dreams. We can do it through OBEs, near-death experiences. I think these things are all times when we can move between the two worlds.
Yeah, manifestations of the same mental energy.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently people are trying to call in. They can't get through.
That's terrible.
Yeah, we made
Yikes.
somebody mad. This is great.
I wonder if they're trying both lines?
Yeah, I've given both lines out now.
It was Quantico earlier, man, cutting in.
Yeah.
They do sometimes.
They're changing the tape.
That's okay. Scott, you had one?
No, go ahead. There it goes. There's a caller. Hello, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, it's PMD.
PMD. Hey, how you doing? Where are you from?
Chicago.
Chicago, the Windy City.
Yeah.
How's it sound up there in Chicago?
It sounds great. I just got totally hooked on your show over the weekend.
Awesome. Where'd you hear about us at?
Well, I was doing a search, and you guys, popped up on Google.
Oh.
And I thought I'd see what this was all about, and I'm addicted now.
All right.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, make sure you go to the site and vote.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So what's your question
What's
for
your
Jeff?
question for Jeff? Yeah.
Well, you guys kept telling me to call in.
Okay, well,
Yeah, well, I mentioned that I was asking if you guys had ever had any kind of spirit activity in real life, and I mentioned that when I was a kid, I lived in an apartment building that had some activity, and recently, in the past 2 years, my sister lived in an apartment that was just really whacked out.
What kind of things were happening?
Oh my gosh, it was negative. It was whatever it was there to scare her. And there was one night she called me just near tears because there were things moving around in her bathroom, which I kept telling her she needed to pick up her robe and stuff and clean up the towels, but she wouldn't listen to me. And then the mirrors were opening and closing, and it was really scary. And I mentioned in the chat room that I'm a Christian, and so I had her get her Bible out, and we just started reading the Psalms and stuff, and for a moment things got worse. And then after a while, after just constantly praying, it died down.
You had a similar experience with this, didn't you, Jeff?
Yeah, this sounds very much like my experience in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I didn't have things, moving and, flying around the room and things like that. But, yeah, I did kind of the same sort of thing you did, where started to invoke the name of Jesus and things like that, and it started to dissipate and then finally left. Mm-hmm. And then did that happen in this case? I mean, did it go away, or did it come back the next night, or?
Oh, it came back.
Yeah.
A couple days later, she called me up. Now, I lived about 20 miles away from her, and she called me up, and she was like, now, mind you, my sister's a lawyer, She's real level-headed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, I worry for her eternal soul, too, but, you know.
No, I failed the bar exam twice. That's why I'm still hate all lawyers right now. So go ahead.
Well, she called me, and she said, yeah, I got out of there. And I was like, all right, well, what happened? And I guess stuff just started moving by itself again, and she just ran to our parents' house. And, you know, and I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to, you know, see what we can do to get some help. Now, nothing would really happen while I was there. I mean, I would feel like something wasn't right, but nothing overt happened. The first time I was there, I remember thinking I just wanted to get out of there. But I would never see anything just like, you know, flying around. I would see little things out of the corner of my eye, and that was it. But, I mean, she had stuff moving around, mirrors moving, and finally they moved. And so far she hasn't had any problems, but it was really scary for a while. I was just wondering, you know, have any of you had anything like that happen?
I haven't personally.
No, I can't.
Nothing
quite that dramatic, but
yeah, I don't want anything like that to happen.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's very similar to the Jack Maxwell story I was telling you. That's kind of what happened in his house. He had things moving around and things flying through the air and all that sort of stuff.
Do you link that with poltergeist activity, Jeff?
It does sound like it. It has all the earmarks of poltergeist. You got to look at it from the perspective of ghosts. If you were an angry person and you died and you were still kind of stuck in between the two realms, you might do things like that. You know, I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, that sounds like something that an angry person would do.
Well, thank you for calling PMD. Do you have anything else for us?
No, that's it. If I get haunted again, I'll call you guys.
What does the PMD stand for? I've got this weird...
It's my initials.
Okay.
I could never marry a guy with the last name of S because it would be really bad.
Yeah, I hear that. That.
Yeah, it might be true, but, you know, come on.
Yeah. Oh, my.
Guys, you're awesome.
All right, thanks for calling. Thanks for listening, okay?
Okay.
All right,
bye.
Take care. All right, great.
Cool. Or not cool. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was getting in the chat room.
It was cool that you called, but
she was like, I'm trying to call, and, you know, all the lines
a-
are down, and I can't get through, so...
It's a rather frightening story.
Let's get 800-960-2289. We've got just a few more minutes here left with Mr. Danelek. And, you know, call in if you have any questions, any concerns. We're not Ghostbusters here, but we'll try.
No, you're not, Scott. You're scared of ghosts.
I'm what?
You know, have you ever saw a ghost?
Have I ever seen a ghost?
No, you would run away from a ghost.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I'd
what
totally
I'm
run,
saying,
man. I'm out. You know, you see in the movies, people, you know, they're in a house and they're like, get out. You know, and they're like, hey, I think we'll stay a while. Hey, let's split up. You know, it's nothing. No, I'm like, you know, okay, bye. I'm out of here. So, yeah, well, apparently not everyone, you know, feels the same way. I don't know. So, Jeff, what's on the agenda now? Are you into writing as far as what's coming out later? Are you into writing the next book, or are you writing the science fiction? I mean, not the science. Excuse me. The fiction book that you talked about, or are you writing something else, nonfiction on top of that right now? Are you working on them both simultaneously? What's next for Jeff Danelek?
Well, I just worked with Llewellyn on a rewrite on my Reconsidering Atlantis book. So they have that now. The editor's looking it over. I hope to get a contract here in the next few weeks. I'm also working on two different novels kind of at the same time. I've already written them. I'm working on the editing part, which is where you really get into the meat of it.
Oh, yeah.
A first draft is nothing. You know, it's just garbage, and then you start working it and reworking it, and then eventually the book comes alive. So
have to shape
the
and
other book,
polish it.
actually, you might be interested in there is a Christian theme. It has to do with the Passover week, the trial, arrest, and crucifixion of Christ, told from Judas's perspective.
Oh, that does sound interesting. Who's the author?
His what?
I mean,
What did you say?
I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry, I did kind of.
Did you say who's the author?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is a book that you're working on.
Right. This is a second novel I've been working on that I think will be very interesting to people to kind of see what kind of is going on behind the scenes. You know, so I'm using the gospel accounts pretty accurately, moving along through, but kind of showing you what probably really happened or what might really have been going on behind it.
Okay.
I think a lot of Christians would find it interesting too.
Yeah, it does. It sounds pretty interesting.
All right.
Well,
final.
10 minutes.
Jeff? Final thoughts, Jeff.
Final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean,
final words.
I'm giving up my radio career, I think. No, I don't know.
Oh my.
Hey, at least we're fun. We're not like some radio people.
You guys are a lot of fun. I would just want to say to people out there that ghosts are just people, basically, and they should be treated with the same kind of respect you would treat a person that was in your home. And they're not really anything to be afraid of unless you're just afraid of death. And the reason people are afraid of ghosts is because they're afraid of death.
Yeah.
And if you can come to terms with that aspect of life, or the continuation of it, then ghosts are nothing really to be afraid of. And you can usually talk to them, address them, and they'll normally respond unless they really have some problems.
Okay,
fair enough.
Fair enough, definitely. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Jeff
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you can get his ourcuriousworld.com. That's O-U-R, curiousworld.com. Thanks so much, Jeff, and hopefully we'll see you again really soon.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
You the same. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Jeff Danelek. All right. Oh, we got cool music playing now. All right, yeah, Vertigo.
That's me spinning in front of a wheel of black and white, like High Anxiety, that movie with Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, High Anxiety.
Yeah, didn't he do that? But actually the Hitchcock film, where it comes from.
All right, well, next week we've got Kerry James. His book is entitled, and I don't have it with me in front of me, and I'm not looking at it because I'm thinking it's like the Rapture Dialogues.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think it is.
I think it is the Rapture Dialogues. Real nice guy. I spoke to him on the phone. He's actually blind, and that's so his publicist told me that actually he could tell better blind jokes than I could. So we knew that was something that we definitely wanted on here, because we're gonna throw ours at him and see if he got something better for you. I'm kidding. You've come to the wrong politically correct place here, and the most intolerant of intolerant people, myself. So,
hey, what about that guy that wrote the review?
Oh man, I'm not going to mention that.
You don't want to?
I thought about it, but I'm not going to. Yeah, I could go off on him on the radio, but you know what? I'm not going to do it.
You refer to him as graveyard shift.
Yeah, I could do that, but I no, you know me, man. I'd tell his name and I'd give his email address out.
Yeah, I know you would.
Yeah, I'd give his email address out, and then people would be writing him, and well, yeah, we're just going to leave him alone.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
That's right. Yeah.
It wasn't a very good review.
Yeah, my band got reviewed. It was a bad review, and some of the things he said were personally demeaning to me and very personal, and not in any way, shape, or form where he should have been.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
It was wrong, but
well,
I'm not going to retaliate.
Yeah.
If he does it again, then we'll talk. But anyway, so yeah, who's coming up after that, Trent? Who we got?
We got William Beck, author of Harp's Fury.
Sweet.
All right.
That's a cool book. Then we got Robert Schneck, author of The President's Vampire.
Okay, interesting side note here. This was the guy. I was wrong about Jeff Danelek. You remember I said like last week there was a children's book about automatic writing and all this, that, and the other? This is the guy. This is the guy. Yeah, The President's Vampire. He's a guy. We'll talk about it later.
Right.
It's like play with the Ouija board, kids, and find out what you can.
Week after that, October 16th, we have Ed Waller.
Waller.
I'm sorry.
U.S. What is it?
USA versus U.S.
U.S. of A versus U.S.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing.
I really want to get him on and ask him some questions.
I mean, it's kind of
for him.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
The week after that, we have Pamela Heath and John Clemo.
Yeah.
Suicide, What Really Happens in the Afterlife.
That is a
channeled conversations with the dead.
I told him I wanted somebody that had channeled conversations with Elvis. I tried to get that lady on, man. They never answered my email back. She never did. Yeah, she claimed that she had channeled conversations with Elvis Presley
no kidding.
after his death. I'm like, man,
That would be cool.
You know, if I didn't know better, if I didn't know Elvis was still alive, I mean,
If it's a living ghost, astro projected.
there we go.
Oh,
it could
that's
be
true.
a, you know, a time slip. I don't.
The 18th century Elvis Presley.
The 18th century Elvis Presley.
the 18th century manifestation of Elvis Presley.
Uh-huh.
Sir Aaron.
Sir.
Sir Aaron Presleyton.
The third.
The third. Of Manchester. Okay, November 6th, Stanton Friedman.
Stanton Friedman. Yeah,
that's
big
right.
stuff.
Yeah, he's a heavy hitter. November 13th, Michael B. Hopf, World War III. Are we now involved in World War III?
Probably, yeah, and we're probably all going to die. Isn't that great news, guys?
We got Thomas Horn.
Thomas Horn, that was a great interview the first time.
Yeah, we just
man.
had
That
him
was awesome.
a little bit before that. And
New Horizons. What's this guy named Brent Miller?
yeah, Brent Miller.
This guy.
November 27th.
Let me tell you what, I watched the DVD.
Okay.
All right. It seems to me like, and I could just be generalizing this, but it seems to me like it's the Planet X story all over again. Just
possibly.
repackaged and re-glossed over. Now, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's got some more stuff other than that. But one interesting note is Michael Zarian is actually one of the guys that's on the team with him.
Oh, okay.
And Michael Zarian's in the DVD. I know you haven't got it yet, but I'm going to give that to you too.
Yeah, we
But I only got one copy of that, so but it's definitely yours. You can check that out. What do we got after that?
Okay, well, finally, December 4th, we have... Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we brought him back. Yeah, that's right. The wedding confirmation thing's wrong. I haven't changed it yet.
Yeah, I see that.
Meyer Contacts.
Yes.
What's his name? Tom...
Michael Horn.
Michael Horn, that's it. Okay, no relation to Tom Horn.
No,
by the way.
totally different.
And,
December 18th, Jesse Marcel
Sweet.
Jr. Roswell, it really happened. More to come.
yeah, hopefully I can get a book on that. I don't know when the book's released. It might already be out. I don't think it's out yet. But I have been emailing, I have been corresponding with him through email, and that's Jesse Marcel Jr.
Right.
Roswell, it really happened. He's the kid of the actual Marcel
Involved.
guy
in
that,
the
you might want to check that, yeah. And I'm not sure, there we go. And what's after, I think the next one is what, Christmas Day?
Yes, we have green and red letters.
That's right.
Spell
And
the
you know
word
what, guys?
Merry-
You know what
Merry
it says?
Christmas.
It says Merry Christmas. You know why it says Merry Christmas? Because we're not a bunch of yo-yos out there that have to say Happy Holidays. That's why. Because it's Christmas, man. Look at your calendar.
But
okay?
we're gonna interview Christmas on
No,
Christmas
we're
Day
gonna,
at home.
We're probably just gonna run some pre-recorded
yeah.
stuff, man. You know, but because we'll be with our families. We hope that you're with yours. And if you have time to listen to them. If you don't, you can always pick them up in the archives.
That's true.
But then the next Monday actually.
New Year's Day.
Yeah, follows on New Year's Day. But I figure by New Year's Day everybody will be over their hangovers and they can listen to the show.
nursing them.
Or nursing them that night, and they can listen to the show. I mean, it's 8:00 New Year's Day, so I haven't booked that yet.
Yeah,
but
we'll see.
We'll see if we can find somebody interesting.
So that's our lineup.
That's our lineup. Oh, and we are getting Jonathan Davis from Korn and Duffy from the Cult. They're going to be coming on doing a pre-record with us later. I don't know. Maybe we'll throw that up at Christmas. Who knows?
That is cool.
Yeah, so
that's mega cool.
That is mega cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I got connections, baby. That's right. So
like there should be cartoony dollar signs.
there should be,
floating
but
above
there's
your
not.
head.
Chuck, get back to work counting those dollars.
Yeah, get back there.
Get
All
back
right.
in the back room. That's right. Crack the whip. Drop the hammer. It's time for action. Cock the hammer. That's it.
Scott,
Yeah. Okay.
we got 2 minutes. Let's call this.
Okay. We got what?
2 minutes.
No, we don't. We don't have 10 minutes. We have
Two.
Yeah, we have 1 minute
One-
and 15 seconds by my broadcast clock right here.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not that precise.
I know, but I'm looking at the clock. That's why.
Well, I'm
it's on
looking
Chuck's
my
screen.
non-professional
Yeah,
clock.
this is the broadcast clock right here.
Okay.
Now we have exactly 1 minute.
Well, let's just sit here and count down. 22. No.
Okay.
I think we said it all.
We said it all and then more.
Yeah.
I need to get up with those guys well, never mind.
Yeah.
I'll tell you later. 45 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, Scott. Well, it's been a great interview. Thanks to everybody for calling. Thanks again, Jeff Danelek, and thanks for bringing us the extra copies of the book.
That's right.
awesome.
That was very cool.
And
go on the site and vote. If you want to hear a book from me, vote on there. It's right there. It looks like a banner ad, but it's not. Go there and vote. If you don't want to hear a book from me or don't want to read a book from me, vote no. If you do, yeah, whatever. Just vote. Vote often. All right. That's right. Okay, I'm Jay Scott, the only JD DJ on the Omnisound Radio 1 network.
And I'm Trent Lackey. We're coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where we're talking about big things.
And that's Chuck. Say hi, Chuck. Say bye, Chuck.
Take it easy.
All right, we out.
See ya.